The biggest thing is when you put on a uniform, it's exciting. You've got purpose.
The biggest realization that I had after service, I was going down the wrong path. And that's why I say I'll never regret the decision that I made going into service, because it's given me the structure in my life. And it was kind of my last little Hail Mary to not get stuck into a dark path and make the right decision, even though leading up to that right decision, there was probably a lot of bad ones that I had made along the way as well.
Spartans, listen up.
We need to sleep better. So how do you sleep better? Never thought about it before. And so I met Jack, I met Essentia. Pay attention to the mattress you sleep on because it's loaded with chemicals.
Recovery, cooling, and pressure relief, all in one mattress. Up to 60% more deep and REM sleep. Less inflammation, faster bounce back. No toxins, no EMFs, no BS.
My buddy Jack over at Essentia, he's kind enough to give us a code for the Spartan community. That's DECA, that's Tough Mudder, all of us. Use Spartan25, get a discount. Prioritize your sleep so you can sleep faster, you can do more burpees, you can train more, you can get healthier. When you sleep well, you live well.
Joe De Sena here, CEO, founder of Spartan, host of the Hard Way podcast. Got a buddy of mine, John Milkovich, just got out of the service not too long ago, and he's teaching other veterans how to do it maybe a little better. Is that a fair way to say it?
I'd like to think so, yeah, at the end of the day.
So you grew up in a family of uniformed services?
Correct. My dad's a retired battalion chief. My mom's a retired nurse. My father-in-law is retired military. Uncle's retired police chief. And so I come from a long line.
And so it's natural. One of the things I was talking about today was this idea. I wish, and I don't know how you and I haven't talked about this, but I wish every kid coming out of high school had like a 1 year, 1 year in the military, 1 year leveling up, 1 year rite of passage. I don't know how you feel about that, but it sounds like that's where your mindset was. Like, hey, everybody else is gone. I got to go in.
It was one of those things that everyone laughs. I kind of give this weird answer to my time in service. It was the worst decision I ever made that I will never regret in my lifetime. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It gave me that structure that I really needed in my life. I didn't know where I was going. And, I tried college. I would sign up for classes. I would drop out. And I did that for several years. And it finally came down to like, hey, I need to get my crap together. And I ended up signing up to be Airborne Infantry with the Army. Again, worst decision that I ever made, but the best decision ever. And I'm never going to regret it.
How old were you when you went in?
I was 22 years old when I signed up.
So from graduating high school to 22, tell me about those years.
So tried college. I should have never been allowed to go to college at 18 years old. I just did not have structure. It's something my parents and I still talk about to this day. And so I'd go to class, come home, and, I wanted to party. I wanted to have fun in a college town. And then reality set in. I wasn't able to continue to do that, and I had to figure out what I wanted to do next. And so that's where I signed up for the Army.
Most kids need that. Most kids are not in a highly structured sports environment. Like most kids are addicted, like we all are, to our phones, right? We're not getting out like we used to because we got Uber Eats. And so 1 year in the military, I don't know. I mean, if you had to do it again, would you have gone in right at 18?
I think so. If I looked back, I mean, when I say that my one regret with service was, I came out of service of active duty at 27, 28 years old. I had blown out my knee. I was airborne operations. And so I've got many an issue with my back. And so like a lot of it, the bad decision came from, my body broke down a lot quicker than if I had just continued to live a normal life at the end of the day. I truly think, maybe the military isn't the option, but if you did Peace Corps, if you did something that shows you kind of what the real world was, because one of the biggest things after service is I went to college. I went to in person. I was taking classes in person. And I realized like I had seen more of the world. I don't have all the answers for everything as much as my wife may think I think sometimes, but I had a better sense of reality. And I understood looking and listening to some of these 18-year-olds that I was in class with of like, dude, you don't know what the hell's going on here. And so that gave me a good picture of exactly what was going on. And so I do think, 1 or 2 years, even if it's not in the military, if it's with the Peace Corps, if it's with something that kind of gives you that exposure to the real world at the end of the day. I mean, you're sheltered till you're 18 for most people.
And more sheltered than we've ever been. Even families like mine, where I talk a big game about how I'm pushing the kids really hard or whatever, but it's not the 1800s. And so kids, there's an interesting choice of words from your perspective on, like, you just weren't ready and the people around you. So you beat up your body a bit, but had you not gone in the military, who knows? You could have still been like drinking too much or partying too much. Or
the biggest realization that I had after service, and anyone that you talk to, I profoundly say, I'm the world's biggest mama's boy. And so when I got out of service, or not out of service, when I got out of basic training, you get your time with your families and everything like that I did 16 weeks of basic training. And I'm sitting there talking with my parents, and my mom looks at me at one point and she's like, you're different. It's a good thing. You're different. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, Jonathan, the years that you spent in Florida and Tallahassee, every night I wouldn't sleep because I thought I would get a call that you were dead in a ditch somewhere. And so that right there was kind of like an oh shit moment for me of I was going down the wrong path. And that's why I say I'll never regret the decision that I made going into service, because it's given me the structure in my life. And it was kind of my last like little Hail Mary to not get stuck into a dark path. And that's a lot of where my story comes from, is like, I've been very lucky that every time I've somehow been able to not become a statistic or not go down the wrong path and make the right decision, even though leading up to that right decision, there was probably a lot of bad ones that I had made along the way as well.
what are you seeing from your contemporary, the folks that are also, checking out of the military, their time is up, or even folks that are still in that are friends of yours? What are you seeing? And you've got a nonprofit, so you're looking to help folks. What are you seeing?
The biggest thing that I see is I joined, and a lot of the guys, were in the initial evasions that we saw in 2002, 2003, 2004, 2007, 2008. And a lot of our guys a lot of guys in my generation of service haven't necessarily seen combat at the end of the day. I had some buddies, that were at the Afghanistan withdrawal. I've had some buddies that have little things here and there, but for the most part, we're training to go and do something one day if we ever had to. We see training deployments, nothing to the extent the guys did. And the biggest thing that I had to battle with, and then I've also, had to tell a lot of the guys that I served with, is like, it's okay to not be okay at the end of the day. It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to, have the issues that you have. The military trains you in such a certain way that when you get out of service, you're not prepared for the real world. You have the exposure, you have everything. But the biggest gut check that I had throughout all of that was realizing, like, not that I expected things to line up for me perfectly, but I expected them to be a little bit easier at the end of the day. I have this training from the military. I've led teams of 30, 40 guys. I can put in the time. I put in 16, 20-hour days, sometimes 24 hours a day for weeks on end. Like I can die for a mission at the end of the day. And they're not there.
It's probably the same. Like I've been thinking about it a lot because I have children now that are launching into college, and it's like, just because you got into that college, like, that's not the end. That's the beginning. And so you come out of the military and you're like, I'm set now. But I've tried to help a lot of veterans get work, and it's frustrating for me because I say the same thing your brain is saying, which is like, I should just be able to walk them in anywhere. Especially operator, like special force, but you can't. It's not that easy.
And that's kind of where the nonprofit started. Was I got out of service, out of active duty in 22, like I said, and I was going to school full time. I was not working. My body slowed down a little bit, and I was realizing, hey, I'm hurting a little bit more than I was when I was too busy to pay attention to it at the end of the day. I started to almost obsess, I would say, over veteran benefits and figuring out, hey, what is out there that I got for serving? What am I able to use to help me get more successful? Because I realized very quickly no one was going to give me a handout at the end of the day that said, hey, 1, 2, 3, here you go. You're the COO of some company in the next 5 years if you do this, this, and this. And so I was helping guys, hey, you need to get signed up for this GI benefit for college. Hey, you need to make sure that you're getting all your ailments at the end of the day checked on by the VA so they can get documented. And I found fulfillment in that at the end of the day. I was enjoying 3, 4, 5 hour conversations with guys, basically drawing up checklists for them of like, hey, this is what I need to do in order to set myself up for success. And the biggest thing at the end of the day for me too was I want to be a successful person. I want the nonprofit to take off and I want to be able to help veterans and first responders and service members. But I also want to be successful for my family, for my wife and I, and, the future kids that we plan to have one day, because I saw the success with my parents, the work their asses off to get where they're at. And that's what I, want to paint the picture for as well. And so one of those, like the veteran benefits, that was one thing right off the bat that I fell in love with and felt fulfillment. And honestly and truly, that's at the end of the day, what stemmed creating the nonprofit and, what we're doing now.
And how's it going?
It's going good. It's a lot of learning curves for me. I'm a master's student at Syracuse in the MBA program. So I always thought I'd have a private business, be able to get investors and, get off the ground rolling and everything from day one. And it's been learning curves. I've got an amazing board of people with amazing experiences at the end of the day, brands backing it left and right. And, the biggest thing that we're doing now is reaching out to veterans, first responders, and service members and just saying like, hey, we're here to help. We want to help y'all have an active and healthy lifestyle. And how we're doing that is building community groups that you get to train together and then doing our best to cover race fees for them to be able to go and compete. At the end of the day, military, first responders, and service members love a little bit of competition.
For those listening, what would you say that, the top challenge is for anybody launching a nonprofit, a business? Like, what was the one thing that just like was a master obstacle that you had to wrangle?
For me, so my wife and I have had little side businesses here and there. So I've done the LLC paperwork. I've done the tax people, the stuff that you have to do at the end of the year for businesses. For me personally, it was that dealing with the IRS and getting all the paperwork in place, making sure that we clearly presented our mission at the end of the day to be a charitable organization. I honestly and truly, when I started out, I was transitioning from one job to another, and I had about a 2-week period, and I sent 400 or 500 cold emails. Like my 9 to 5 was basically me and Gmail and hunting down email addresses to reach out to people with, and got amazing support from the beginning when this was just an idea and I was doing market research. And so at the end of the day, initially it was, the full setup of it. It was a year process. This was an idea on paper almost 18 months ago now. And just recently in September, October is when we received our notification from the IRS that we were a 501c3. One of the big things personally for me, not with paperwork or anything like that, is patience. I want to see it blow up. I want to see it take off and we're helping people and we're doing what we set out to do at the end of the day. But there's a lot of work that's got to go into that.
It takes time. I remember the first 15 years of Spartan, I would say, it's a 15-year overnight success, right? Like you got to put in an enormous amount of time, probably 15 times more than you anticipate or plan for. And even then, when you get it all right, the pandemic hits. So this is a thing, I commend you on doing it. You're doing God's work, but it's a journey.
And it's one everyone laughs at me because the little wins that most people would be like, oh, this is nothing. I'm not a very emotional person, but I got the IRS letter and I sat in my car and I was crying. Like I was so happy about getting it. And part of it comes back, what we're fighting for at the end of the day. After I got out of service, I was told, "Hey, you're never going to run again. You're never going to be able to do what you did before service." And last year alone, I crossed 4 half marathon finish lines, and I just finished the Phoenix Marathon this past December. And every single time, I am a emotional mess, and I'm not an emotional person, but I'm bawling my eyes out like I just did it. I have very colorful language. At the end of the day, I don't have it around my mother. And the first half marathon that we did last year, I come across the finish line, and I'm like sobbing, and my mom's like, "Oh shit, he's injured again. Like, what's wrong? What happened?" And she comes running over to me, and she's a nurse, so she's like, "What do I need to do?" kind of thing. And I just look at her and I'm like, "Mom, I'm fine." And she's like, "Well, why are you like bawling your eyes out then?" I was like, "Mom, I fucking did it. I did it. I had been told for so long I wasn't going to be able to do it." And I believed him. I really and truly believed him, but I did it. And I couldn't have been happier. It was not the time that I used to run, but I did it. I finished, 13.1 at that time. And everyone had told me before then you weren't going to do it. And I did.
There is something really special about suffering and crossing finish lines and having that date on the calendar. I know you haven't talked to a ton of veterans yet. You're just getting this thing going. What are you hearing over and over from them?
So we were very fortunate. We brought actually 6 veterans to the start line at Phoenix, and that was part of the reason we had traveled out there and was doing it with them. We got done that night and we had dinner, and one guy was actually the reason, him and his wife were the reason that we were out in Phoenix for this race. He kind of had the same response that I did, was like, "Dude, I had been told for so long like I wasn't what I used to be, and I did it." And he's like, "I didn't beat you, but I did it." At the end of the day, and that's the competition. Him and I both were talking smack all the way leading up to it of, "Oh, are you going to be able to keep up with me? Are you going to keep up with me?" kind of thing. That right there was the thing for me that I just was like, this is why we do it. I've had my personal experience with it, and I may be the only one that does. But when I saw that, I was like, we can replicate this. We can do this for anybody and everybody that's interested. And it's not just veterans specifically. My dad did 35 years as a first responder with being a firefighter. He got done 3 years ago, and he was like, "What do I do?" He had no projects. He wasn't going into the station. He wasn't doing what he needed to do, and he didn't know what was needing to get done at the end of the day.
You tell me. That's probably the biggest, for anybody listening or watching. The biggest thing is when you put on a uniform, you're even if you're not, like you said, in action, you're in action. It's exciting. You've got purpose. And when you take that uniform off, yeah, it's probably a letdown.
I miss it every single day. If my body could let me go back in with my back, I can't wear a plate carrier anymore. I can't have like true downward pressure on my spine continuously. It's a weird thing. And again, it's that self-awareness that I had of like, maybe this is just me. But then talking with my buddies, seeing my dad after 35 years of, one day he just stopped going into work. There's not this like smooth letdown of like, all right, you've got a 24-hour shift. Now you got a 16-hour shift. Now you got an 8-hour, and we're going to, slowly, gradually push you out of it. It's, Monday you go to work and that's your last shift and you're done.
How do people find the charity? We're going to help blow it up for you. How do people find this charity?
Yeah. So you can go to operationwarriorfit.com. It gives all the information there. We're on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're going to be dropping some videos, following along with some of our cool adventures that are coming up. And then we've also got LinkedIn as well.
Thanks for coming aboard.
Thank you.